So today I'm going to go on a little rant about fractional reserve banking and what's going on with the ignorance of the people. So this YouTube, we're going to talk about fractional reserve banking. What is it and what's wrong with it? When did it get enacted into law? Well, let's give a reference to a great book called The Creature from Jekyll Island. I forgot, that's a typo there. And it's one of the best books I know of and show how it got enacted into law. The Creature from Jekyll Island. I forgot the author's name. I'm sorry. Let's give you a few facts that you don't know and then that the high school and economic textbooks don't teach you. I don't know why, but the fact is the Federal Reserve Act was enacted in 1913 in December with 40% gold as reserves using Federal Reserve notes. Now, they didn't use silver and gold certificates. They used the privately owned bank Federal Reserve notes. That was the criminal act. Now, another little known fact is that silver and gold certificates were circulating at the same time. They were redeemable in the gold and silver coins, which were referenced by the Coinage Act of 1792, and specifically Section 20, which hardly anybody seems to know this. And again, the economics and textbooks don't tell you this. I don't know why. So let's continue here. There is a booklet that was published in 1939 called The Federal Reserve: Its Purpose and Its Functions, which explains that there was 40% gold as reserves. I had to read this very thoroughly to figure it out myself that there was 40% gold as reserves. It's not listed right in the index, so you have to do it really deep thinking to understand this. That's why nobody knows this. So anyhow, again, the economics textbooks don't show you this information. So now let's continue. Since there was 40% gold as reserves from 1913 up to 1933, they eliminated circulating gold, where there was Federal Reserve notes that were redeemable in gold, but after 1934, they were not redeemable in gold. Now, what were the Federal Reserve notes redeemable in 1934 and onward? People don't know. Again, it's not in your economics textbooks. They're not going to explain why. If you read the wording on the previous Federal Reserve notes and the three different ones issued, the Federal Reserve notes, you would see that they removed the word gold from the Federal Reserve notes in 1934 and up to 1961. This series, they were redeemable in lawful money. And what was the money? Well, I don't know. How could it be redeemable in gold if there was no gold? It's redeemable in lawful money. Well, I'm not sure why. So the public is simply too lazy to understand what's going on. All they do is research and do internet search. That's all you have to do is an internet search on the Federal Reserve notes from 1913 to 1933 and what they did with the wording from 1934 to 61 Federal Reserve notes and the ones that are issued in 1962. The public is simply too lazy. I don't know why. Once you see that the wording has changed, you're going to question in your mind. If you have any sense about you, you'll say something happened here. Why? Let's continue. The public generally doesn't want to understand that fractional reserve banking is immoral. They don't care because they don't have enough information. They shrug their shoulders and they go on about their business because they can buy a loaf of bread. Well, they don't know that there's a cause and effect of what they're using as money, and they don't want to think about it, even though they have the technology to access the information right in front of their noses in their own homes. So how could you have 40% gold as reserves from 1913 to 1933? Why would you do that? That's ridiculous. It's like having 100 movie seats and selling 125 seats, or a supply store that tries to sell you more supplies than they have in stock. This is ridiculous. The Federal Reserve's own material doesn't say it's immoral, and that's why the public doesn't understand this. And they think it's just okay. Again, the high school economics books don't tell you this. They don't have any logic or moral sense to the fractional reserve banking rule. They read the textbooks, and they don't apply any morality. They shrug their shoulders and say, okay, it buys me a loaf of bread. And they came up with this phony phrase, elastic money supply. Well, that's ridiculous. You can't allow one industry called banking to do something that's criminal, not have more than they have in supply is ridiculous. The public is absolutely confused and has no moral sense regarding fractional reserve banking. But at some point, you people are going to have to face the music, and you can't just allow this to go on. What goes up must come down. It's that simple. You cannot just sit there and say, I don't. If you stay ignorant is not a way to sit there and say, well, I'll just remain ignorant, let somebody else fix it. Yeah. Now, When I ask people what's the difference why can't the Federal Reserve don't use gold as reserves? The International Monetary Fund uses gold reserves. I ask the member nations why they give them gold when the Federal Reserve functions without gold. See, they both practice fractional reserve banking, right? You didn't know that. So I'm teaching you along the way here. The International Monetary Fund can function without gold. If the Federal Reserve of the United States can function without gold reserves, why can't the International Monetary Fund? What am I missing here? One functions without gold and the other needs gold. What am I missing here? The International Monetary Fund, if you do an internet search, it's called Special Drawing Rights, SDS. Special Drawing Rights, SDS. Look it up. And they practice fractional reserve banking, which is an immoral act. It must stop. You can't just keep doing something crooked to people. You can't fool all of us all of the time. I don't know why people think they can, but they're getting away with it, so be it. The public doesn't know the difference because they're ignorant. They stopped using gold as reserves from 1934 and they don't know the difference. They just keep thinking it buys me a loaf of bread. And now in 2025, the prices have doubled and the public just shrugs their shoulders and cries, the prices have gone up. Well, the public is so dumb. They have a smartphone and a tech device connected to the internet. They can simply research this stuff, but they want to remain dumb and watch TikTok, and I call it TikTok stupid. So if you want to remain TikTok stupid and keep working harder and harder, go right ahead, be my guest. Stay stupid and work harder. I don't care. Because at some point, enough of us are going to learn about the subject money, and we're going to vote in intelligent politicians, and we're going to vote out the other ones. So we had, let's see here, the people just let the ignorant teachers that are teaching economics 101 spew their nonsense about fractional reserve banking, and they don't explain if it's moral or not in the books that they have, the economics textbooks. We had gold as reserves from 1913 to 1934. Why remove gold on the paper? Well, the International Monetary Fund is using gold reserves. What am I missing here? They don't even know how to talk to you about it because they're ignorant of the subject. Okay, let's continue here. Let me continue my rant. The people used to live on the land, work the land, and create the wealth. Now they need fiat money to function and exist. And they think there's nothing wrong with it. Well, because they can buy a loaf of bread, but they're so dumb that the prices have doubled in the last couple of years, and they don't know how or why. So they just shrug their shoulders like a bunch of lemmings and go along with it. Yeah, okay. Some of you, I was a lemming, I didn't know, but I learned from Merrill Jenkins, and I read almost every book. I researched this for 10 years. So don't go telling me I'm ignorant, I don't know what I'm talking about. I'm giving you the cliff notes of Merrill Jenkins so you can become educated and not a dumb lemming anymore. People used to hold the gold and silver coins. The gold and silver were brought to the mint, and the people owned the money. They owned it. The money was theirs. That was wealth. It was barter, not money. It was barter in the exchange. When you trade a gold coin for a shoes, that's a barter. People say the gold is the money. That's a misstatement. They're an uneducated person. Okay, and now they don't own the money and they think they own the Federal Reserve notes. You don't own the Federal Reserve notes. Again, you don't own Federal Reserve notes. That's right, you don't. You think you do. You think you got a bunch of Federal Reserve notes in your pocket? You don't own them. You think it's my money. Well, you're 100% wrong. So they're ignorant of the whole situation. They don't know how to think their way out of it because they don't want to know. They want to sit there with their tech device and be TikTok stupid. Okay, what most educated people don't even understand is there's a cause and effect of what you're using as money, whether you're using gold and silver, worthless paper, or the continental dollar, which is not in our textbooks. It became worthless because it's a non-redeemable, worthless piece of paper, just as the Federal Reserve notes are. The public doesn't understand the difference. We're right back where they were in the 1700s. We got a worthless piece of paper. The economy hasn't crashed yet, but the prices have doubled, and they can't figure out why. They just shrug their shoulders. They listen to the stupid people in the media who don't know anything in the first place. They're just repeating ad nauseum the same wrong information and the same wrong information that the money hucksters are on YouTube. You want to keep talking about how to make money? Go right ahead, be my guest. But at some point, you're going to wake up and go, well, I think I've got to learn how to read about the money situation and the legal tender laws and the wording on the piece of paper because we just can't continue. Your logical brain has to wake up at some point, and you've got to understand how we got to where we did, and then vote in people that are wise and intelligent on a local level so we can take back our government. Until that happens, I'm just going to sit here and do my ranting and just shrug my shoulders and say, well, I don't know why you people are remaining ignorant and are stuck on what is called stuck on stupid. I don't know why, but I can't fix you. Go see a therapist. So you can't fix it. You could read myself and Merrill Jenkins. The first level of awareness is understanding how we got through this problem in the first place through legal tender laws. They're not in the textbooks. How did we get into this financial mess through the legal tender laws, which isn't in the textbooks? Think about that. You got to wake up, people. Some of you don't have to wake up. You're not. We don't need all of you. Just enough of you to change the voting. Who are voting into office? Okay, let's continue. I'm almost at the end here of this rant. So today we have the blind leading the blind trying to solve our financial situation. We have the media of people who don't even know what they're talking about. We have the money hucksters who tell us how to make money, which is not true. We earn money. We have the educational system that doesn't give us the knowledge on the subject money. And the books don't help either. They're lacking of the information. So how are we going to solve this if we want to take back our government? Well, we got to create the wealth and share the wealth amongst ourselves. You got to eliminate income tax, which is a joke. That is wrong. And you've got to eliminate fractional reserve banking and change this nonsense of brainwashing people in the educational system. The Amish are doing it right. They're living off the land. They're talking amongst each other. They don't want to use fiat money. They don't believe in fractional reserve banking. They're trading and bartering for coins. I'm sure some of them use some paper. But the people just don't understand why they have the deer in the headlights look, why they just refuse to think. I don't know why. Some people are like that. You can't fix them. You can't fix stupid because they're stuck on stupid. Okay, I'm almost done here. So what is totally bizarre is everybody has a tech device. Well, almost everybody has a tech device connected to the internet. And one would think most of the educated, informed people, we'd be the most educated, informed people on the planet. You would think about it. Well, we don't. We got people wasting our time staring at funny TikTok devices and YouTubers showing cat jokes and silly cat things. But they don't want to learn about money. They do. Some people learn about things, but it's getting beyond ridiculous that people are becoming what I say is called, I'm the first to say this, they're becoming TikTok stupid. But anyhow, that's the end of my rant, and I'll see you on the next video.